people that doesn't come naturally to communicate with them, is there a piece of advice or one thing you'd suggest for them that they can take that step?
I'd say, we always overestimate how knowledgeable or smart someone else is and always underestimate how knowledgeable and smart we are. So always just remembering that we also probably have something to bring to this conversation that we're just not thinking of right now. That helps give you that confidence to be able to go and say, let's talk. And it just starts with let's talk. You just got to take that first step. You got to try to learn not just from the people who are posing the problem to you, but you also then got to go ask your peers, and you got to go ask your, folks that you wouldn't even imagine should be in your network to just say, hey, can I pick your brain on this topic? And that sense of openness to communication doesn't come naturally to everyone, but I think that's the thing that we have to tap into, to say that I need to go get answers, and not every answer lies in Google.
Yeah, so coming from your software engineering background, how did you make that shift from seeing the business from the engineering perspective to seeing the needs of the business? And for students who are studying engineering today or looking to pursue that, what can they learn from that?
As engineers, as product developers, we tend to forget how the user interfaces with our product. So that was, one trivial story that I remember from 15 years ago. There were many such other use cases, but putting yourself in your customer's shoes, I think that was the big unlock for me. As I started thinking about, okay, where do I get myopic in my views as an engineer, and where do I really need to start to expand my understanding? So that's one example. But then they used to be talking a lot about business processes. You're going to develop all the software. It's going to require us to change our business process. And for us, it was like, well, do you realize developing a product is much harder work? Changing a process sounds really easy in comparison. And then, more and more interaction, and I realized it's actually pretty difficult to change process, because underlying process is human beings' behavior, and changing the behavior and, sort of the baggage, the background that has led to that behavior for 1,000 people. And by the way, then you get into larger companies like this one or Flextronics, and you're talking 200,000 employees trying to change their behavior. That's hard work. So it was all of that started to excite me about the larger, business context and about business problems. And this is, by the way, we're just talking organizational and process challenges. But I think for people who transition over to the business side, there has to be some passion, some excitement about understanding how all of these different aspects influence your product. Now, having said that, I have also worked with product engineers and sort of business leaders who don't have an MBA. You can absolutely make it to the business world without getting an MBA. But you do have to have a certain inquisitiveness, a certain interest in understanding business context, right? How do we sell? How does the customer use our product? What else does the customer want? What else does the customer want that they can never find the words to even tell you, right? I always think of the iPod, or even really the iPhone, as the first example of did we ever go up and say, yeah, I think I'd love a device that compresses my phone and my camera and my music, my back then CD player into one device? I don't think I could have even articulated that need. And there you go. Then you have the success that the iPhone enjoyed in just completely transforming how we interact with electronic devices.
I noticed that at Vanderbilt, you studied marketing and finance. So I'm curious how you were able to thrive in a consulting role coming out of that and having your engineering background as well.
I was just fascinated by both the sort of the left brain and right brain aspects of finance and marketing, and that's what led me to that. Having said that, I also enjoyed strategy because it's the function that brings together all of these functions. So when I was exploring internship and then eventually job opportunities, and consulting firms came and talked about what they did, I was particularly attracted to the one that I ended up joining, Charles River Associates, because they did consulting, which is soft, squishy strategy problems, by applying a very data-centric, econometrics-centric approach to solving business problems.
Kind of following up, I know a lot of my peers, including myself, are worried that we're not going to end up in the career path that we're currently studying because it'll feel like we wasted our education, like 4 years of our life. But do you have any advice about how to kind of overcome this fear, or can you elaborate on your experience, because your current career path is so different from your original field of study, and you obviously have had a lot of success in this business world. So
absolutely, I think there is no such thing as wasting education. So let me just put that out there. Do I still use any of my, actually, surprisingly enough, I do lead a team of database engineers and data scientists. And I've had to draw on everything that I'd studied back in college 20 years ago. The odd path that you see in my career, like I said, I didn't plan out the whole journey. I always chose the next couple of steps, vaguely thinking, do I like this? Do I like this area? Do I find this interesting and exciting? Do I get to work on interesting problems? Back then it was engineering, now it's business problems, in an environment that lets me apply different tools in the toolkit. And those tools could be creativity, it could be structure. So it's really about following your passion and not worrying too much about, are you wasting a degree? Those never get wasted.
I know personally, I'm trying to decide whether I want to go the consulting route or work for a larger firm or organization. So can you elaborate on the differences that you've experienced between the two and kind of how working in consulting differs from working at T-Mobile or working at Flex?
My personal experience, I've enjoyed the path I've taken. Consulting as the first career out of business school was ideal because, like I said, I hadn't decided that marketing is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life. But that's what consulting gives you. It gives you exposure to a wide variety of business problems, industries, functions, and potentially, by the way, you'll also be learning from different individuals because you'll bounce between projects and you'll talk to, one partner for 3 months, and then you'll be talking to a different partner for the next 3 months. And that kind of learning exposure is, it builds a different faculty. It builds the ability to understand big, meaty, complex problems very quickly and try to get to relatively quick answers. The contrast of working in a company is that you tend to go much deeper. And if you go much deeper, you tend to go to, especially if you look at something like wireless, which is a mature industry, you tend to find the solution that no one has thought of yet. When you're digging deeper, you're going to find the thing that nobody else had the patience and energy to keep digging for. So what you're going to get is two different experiences, and that's where the personal bias comes in. Do you see yourself more as a generalist eventually, or do you see yourself as a specialist already? The beauty about consulting is it gives you another couple of years to make up your mind. You can go into consulting and then experiment with 3 or 4 different industries and then choose the one that really fascinates you.
I was wondering if you could talk about, strategy roles are notoriously hard to get at companies. And so what are kind of the qualities that you look for, or what advice would you have for someone who wants to get into a strategy role at a company?
Strategy roles are harder to get to just because they're also fewer. Not every company has a corporate strategy or a commercial or marketing strategy or ops supply chain strategy team. Second, they tend to be less well known. Depends on what level we're talking about. But if you talk about fresh undergrad, fresh business school graduate, we're looking for basically smart people who are curious about questions. I can tell you how I interview. It tends to be, yes, business case, that's generally reserved for more junior level positions. But even in the senior level positions, the questions I will ask start to get deeper into the creative aspect. So I will throw out questions like, well, what if that hadn't worked? Then what would you have gone to next? What if that hadn't worked? Or, okay, describe the environment, the ecosystem to me. But what if I switched this lever? Would you have done something differently? What if there was a 7th player in your industry? Would you have, tried to buy a different company, followed a different path to growth? So we're really looking for people who can think very quickly on the fly, who tend to try to understand a system as a whole, and are just generally curious, inquisitive, and ready to solve problems.
Throughout all these experiences, is there anything in particular you've learned or any advice you can give to students or any of your favorite experiences?
I have always seeked out mentors, and they don't necessarily always have to be a boss. And they also don't necessarily have to be assigned to you. I've been in formal mentorship programs and sometimes clicked and sometimes not clicked with my mentors. No, that's something that you have to recognize for yourself. What is it that you want to learn? And who do you see around you who could teach you and who is passionate about and excited about teaching you that? But then the really key thing about mentorship selection is also, what can you do for your mentor? Can you help them in some way? Can you help them grow? Typically, at least the choice of mentors that I've had are people who love to teach. But as they're teaching, it's not just, hey, just give me all your knowledge. It's also, let's brainstorm. I have this interesting problem. How would you approach this? And let me tell you how I approached it. Do you think there's anything here? Did I bring some interesting insight, interesting point of view, perspective that you hadn't thought of? I did want to mention that. And I think that's the one thing that has been consistent through my career. I found mentors, they've helped me, and hopefully I've helped them back.